Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Today, actually tomorrow, I'm going to smoke this piece of salmon outside. So today I need to prep it and get everything ready. So let's get this bag open and see what we've got. Okay, so get this nice piece of Atlantic salmon. Looks pretty good. Okay, so it needs just a little bit of cleanup. There's a few of these little pin bones in here. And I know that people tell you to grab them with tweezers or pliers or whatever, but you should be able to just grab them with your fingers and pull them out. It's really not that difficult. It's not as difficult as some people make it out to be. Just kind of, there you go. Okay, so I'm going to pull all of these out. Okay, so that took about 10 minutes to get all of the bones out. And you just kind of run your hand along the surface of the salmon and you're going to feel them. And there's going to be bones that radiate out in both directions, both to the bottom of the fish and to the top of the fish. And generally, where you see a fat line in the flesh, you're going to find a bone. So you just kind of run your fingers along and you see if you find any and pull them out. It's really that easy. There's nothing to it. And then just kind of go along and check and make sure that you've got them all. Right here is a very fatty part of the fish. I leave that on. This fatty bit here is gold. And there might be some bones here at the bottom and along at the top where the fins were. If your salmon has those, you just cut them out. Now, the next problem is finding a container big enough that this will lay flat. I don't have one anymore, so I'm going to cut mine in half, right about there. Now, when Jules and I lived in the north, Long Lac, Nakina, Thunder Bay, we did a lot of dry-cured smoked fish. And I really like the dry-cure method. You can also do a wet brine method, which is kind of like what you do with your turkey. You put it in a big bucket of water with salt and sugar and other spices. I really like salmon done by dry cure, and I like to put only two things in. And one is coarse salt and brown sugar. I'm just going to mix that together with my hand and get a nice even mixture. Okay, so I've got a plastic tub here, and I'm going to take the first piece of salmon, skin side down, put it into the tub, and just cover it in this salt and sugar mixture. Make sure it's covered everywhere, and it doesn't have to be on thick, it just has to be covered. And then I just take the second piece, lay it on top, and finish it off. So almost right away, you can see the salt and the sugar pulling moisture out of the fish. That's great, exactly what we want to have happen. So I'm going to put a cover on this, and I'm going to stick it in the fridge overnight. And a couple hours from now, I'm going to come back, I'm going to take a look at it, I'm going to see how much liquid it has pulled out, and I might flip the fish over if it's swimming in liquid, so to say. And I might do that a couple of times over that 12-hour period, and then tomorrow we'll come back and we'll move on to the next step. I got sidetracked, so this is about 12 hours later, and you can see how much liquid has come out of the salmon. There's quite a bit in the bottom, and you can see that the texture of the salmon has changed as well. It gets stiff, and it doesn't bend quite as well. I'm going to take this over to the sink, and I'm going to rinse off as much of the cure as I possibly can. Okay, now if I was going to continue today and put this on the smoker, I would let this sit out room temperature for 4 or 5 hours. If I had a fan, I'd blow some air over top of it. You want it to dry out and get what's called a pellicle, and that's going to help the smoke adhere. I don't have time to finish this today, so I'm going to stick it in the fridge, and I'm going to leave it in the fridge for about 24 hours, and inside the fridge it's going to dry out. So just make sure that you've got the fish on a rack, and I'm putting a pan underneath it so nothing drips on the rest of the stuff in the fridge. So I'll see you tomorrow at the smoker. Here we are, 12 hours later, and that fish looks wonderful. It's dried out nicely. We've got a nice pellicle. It's a little bit tacky, which is great. That's the sugar on top. Now, before we go to the smoker, I'm going to turn these over, and I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the skin side, just so it doesn't stick to the grill grate. I've got the smoker preheated to 150 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the lowest setting for this Yoder smoker. If I could, I'd set it even lower. I really would like to start this at about 130 degrees Fahrenheit. And the reason for that is you don't want to heat the fish too quickly because the meat will contract and force out the albumin, something that you want to avoid. So 150 degrees Fahrenheit, low smoke for the first hour. And I'm going to put this fish on the upper rack, skin side down. I've also cut this little bit of tail off because it's going to cook faster, and I'm going to put it as far away from the heat as possible. Now I'm going to close the lid, and I'm not going to look at it for at least an hour. It's been about an hour at 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and we've done fairly well of tracking that temperature, and you don't have to go overboard with making sure that you've got that bang on. Just be mindful of it. At this point, I'm going to turn it up to 175 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm going to baste one of the pieces with some maple syrup. Now we're shooting for a finished internal temperature on this salmon of about 135 degrees Fahrenheit. And this might take another hour, hour and a half to get there. So I'll probably come out and put on a little bit more maple syrup every half hour until we are done. So we're just about a little over 2 hours at this point, and I've already taken off the little tip of the tail because it cooked faster. So I'm going to check these two pieces in the thickest part and see where we are. And yeah, we're 137 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're done. Time to come off. Oh, falling apart. Should have used a spatula. Oh.
Hello, Glenn. Hello, friends.
So, hot smoked salmon. And I didn't do a very good job cutting it. But, so there's two different ways. We've got two different ones here. Okay, so this one, I didn't brush anything on it while it was smoking.
Okay.
So this is just cured with salt and brown sugar. Yeah. Soft and moist.
I like smoked fish a lot.
Yeah. Not heavily smoked. So this is different than a cold smoked fish. Like a cold smoked salmon doesn't fall apart like this. Hot smoked salmon does.
We just said this one has...
That one has maple syrup on it. So let's give that a try.
Here, let me borrow that. I had brought forks, but you know, apparently we went freeform.
Who needs a fork?
Mah!
Okay, so cut this one in half. Yeah. Okay. I need to sharpen my knife. A little more smoke. Maple syrup catches a little bit more of the smoke.
But I don't know. They're both really good.
It's not sweet.
No, it hasn't. I was expecting. I think that's what I'm trying to process. Is I was expecting this sharp sugar flavor.
The sweetness, but it's not. And I think people I see a lot of comments about why there's always brown sugar in the cure and why is there always some either honey or maple syrup or something like that put on it on the smoker. And people assume that it's going to be sweet, but it isn't. It's not sweet, and the sugar is just part of the curing process.
Those are both really tasty.
So,
I really like smoked fish. Like, no denying.
so you could eat this hot off of the smoker. You could eat it cold later with a salad or
it's
whatever.
It's a great summer thing.
You can vacuum seal this and stick it in the freezer, and it will keep almost indefinitely. As long as the seal is good, it will keep in the freezer. So,
But why wouldn't you just
why
eat
wouldn't
it?
you just eat it? I mean, that's it. This will not last us very long at all. So this is just one way to do hot smoked salmon. There's lots of different ways to do it, and there's cold smoked salmon as well. And so we'll probably do one or two.
And I'll point out there's other fish.
Oh, and there's other fish. Yes, there's so many other fish. But we'll probably come back and do this again in a couple of different ways because there are different textures depending on how you do it. This is the softest textured of the smoked salmons. So, tell us how you do smoked fish, if you smoke fish, in the comments below. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.